Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. Global markets jump after the U.S. and China agreed to roll back most tariffs for 90 days, marking a de-escalation in the trade war between the two major economies. We'll break down the latest details of this deal with an economist. President Trump signs an executive order to cut prescription prices to the level paid by other high-income countries. More on what the president calls most favored nation pricing. Is Qatar gifting President Trump a $400 million jumbo jet? The Gulf nation denies making a final decision, saying the deal is still under review. The White House says any gift would be following the law. Hamas terrorists have released Israeli-American hostage Adnan Alexander. He had been held hostage for more than 19 months in the Gaza Strip. A Northern California sheriff reveals how a theft of copper wires shut down his county's 911 system, prompting his decision to work with ICE despite California's sanctuary state law. And talks of peace may be in the air, but so are Russian drones. Ukraine points the finger over an alleged nighttime attack.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
U.S. and Chinese officials say they have reached a deal to roll back most of their recent tariffs for 90 days. Now, according to a joint statement, U.S. tariffs on Chinese imports will be cut to 30%, down from 145%. China, in turn, will then lower its tariffs from 125% down to 10%. The two sides also agreed to keep talking to resolve their trade disputes. Global technology and chip stocks rose sharply after the announcement earlier today. Here are those details.
The US and China have agreed a deal to slash reciprocal tariffs for now. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said Monday the two sides had agreed on a 90-day pause following talks in Switzerland.
Both sides on the reciprocal tariffs will move their tariffs down 115%. We had very robust discussions. Both sides showed great respect.
Monday's announcement comes as the world's two biggest economies look to end a trade war. The fallout has hit the global outlook and put financial markets on edge.
The consensus from both delegations this weekend is neither side wants a decoupling. And what had occurred with these very high tariffs, as Ambassador Greer said, was the equivalent of an embargo, and neither side wants that. We do want trade. We want more balanced trade.
The meetings in Geneva were the first face-to-face interactions between senior US and Chinese economic officials since Donald Trump returned to power. The president has hiked the tariffs paid by US importers for goods from China to 145%. China hit back by putting export curbs on some rare earth elements vital for US manufacturers of weapons and electronic consumer goods. Beijing also raised tariffs on US goods to 125%. The tariff dispute brought nearly $600 billion in two-way trade to a standstill. Wall Street stock futures climbed and the dollar firmed against safe haven peers on Monday. Market watchers hope the talks mean a global recession might be avoided.
White House Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett commented on the trade deal with China. Take a listen.
We actually have a fresh start with China. That's the way to think about these negotiations, that we've come in with these reciprocal tariffs. We've described the non-tariff barriers and tariffs that disadvantage American workers, and folks are coming to the table, and it's really stunning how quickly they're moving and how dramatic the changes are. This is obviously 2 days' work, and there's 90 days more work to do to make sure that we land the plane. But, you know, the plane is right there over the runway. I don't think that there's much hope of people who think that this is going to go back. This is absolutely a sound deal.
Before departing the White House for a 4-day trip to the Middle East, President Trump signs an executive order that seeks to lower drug prices in the U.S. by pressing other countries to pay more. He's also touting the latest ease of trade tensions between the U.S. and China. So now we've got live in studio NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. Iris, great to see you in the studio.
Good to be here.
All right, tell us more about this order about these drugs.
Sure. So before departing the White House this morning, President Trump announced that he's signing this executive order to lower prescription drug prices inside the U.S. by up to, he says, 80%. And the way how it works is essentially that he wants other nations to pay more for what the drug companies are calling their cost for research and development costs. And President Trump says that that's to equalize the situation and ensure that U.S. Payers here can pay less for the same drugs that they're using for these drug companies. And here's what he said about it. Watch.
Starting today, the United States will no longer subsidize the health care of foreign countries, which is what we were doing. We're subsidizing others' health care. Countries where they paid a small fraction of what for the same drug that what we pay many, many times more for, and will no longer tolerate profiteering and price gouging.
And of course, now the big question is if these drug makers will comply with administration's directive. And Trump says that he expects them to voluntarily comply with the directive and lower their prices for Americans. But if they don't, the administration might actually launch investigations into these drug makers. And for those nations who Trump alleges that are actually pressuring these drug companies to give them lower prices, Trump says he might use economic tools like tariffs to pressure these countries that you have to pay more for these drugs because now we want to shoulder less. And you should shoulder your fair share. Meanwhile, it's going to likely face opposition, though, from the big pharma industry. As we noted during Trump's first administration, he also tried to do something similar through a trial program, but that was actually eventually almost struck down during a court legal challenge and ultimately rescinded by the Biden administration. So it's ultimately still remaining to be seen if this new directive, this new executive order will actually implement the changes that the Trump administration wants to achieve.
Yeah, well, making healthcare more affordable was part of President Trump's whole campaign trail promise. But I think another really big part of today's talks and really the weekend was this U.S.-China trade deal. Tell us more about that.
Sure. So that was definitely the biggest development on trade, especially after this weekend's first set of trade talks between U.S. and China. And now, of course, we've seen both countries announcing that they're going to lower their tariffs on each other. The U.S. now down to 30%. The China tariffs on the U.S. now down to 10%. And President Trump this morning called it a total reset with U.S.-China trade. He also says that China agreed to lower their non-trade barriers as well as to agree to open up their markets to the U.S. But there are some exceptions, though, when it comes to what the U.S. will do to its tariffs on China. Watch.
In addition, yesterday we achieved a total reset with China. Both sides now agreed to reduce the tariffs imposed after April 2nd to 10%. Well, that doesn't include the tariffs that are already on, that are our tariffs, and it doesn't include tariffs on cars, steel, aluminum.
And President Trump reiterates that he thinks that China needs the U.S. very badly and that he will potentially talk to China's Xi Jinping later this week. And meanwhile, it comes, though, as talks are still ongoing. Remember, this is not a finalized trade deal. This is only an initial step to further negotiations and discussions for a more long-term deal. So Trump says that might actually take a while to be finalized, especially on paper. And he says that if ultimately no deal is reached, U.S. tariffs on China might actually go up substantially, definitely more than the 30% we're seeing for the next 90 days.
Yeah, as you said, this is still very preliminary. We'll have to keep an eye on what happens next in these trade talks. My goodness, Iris. Meanwhile, the president, he's also on his way to the Middle East. Now, this is the first major international trip he's making in the second term.
Right. It was actually supposed to be his first foreign trip as his now second term as president. But of course, he traveled to Rome first for the funeral of the Pope. And now he's actually finally traveling to the Middle East, visiting first, of course, we know to Saudi Arabia and then Qatar, then the UAE. And the main focus of his trip this time will be economic ties. He's seeking to get these countries to invest more in the U.S. Actually, just recently, we have already seen, for example, some countries there adding their investments in the U.S. to strengthen the economic ties between these countries. Meanwhile, there's also a controversy surrounding this trip, which we have seen all over news today, which is that Trump announces that he is going to accept this luxury jet from a royal family of Qatar. And that's going to replace the Air Force One that Trump, of course, other presidents have been using for the past 40 years. One that Trump has been complaining for a while that is too old, is not good enough for the U.S. president. And while the media or some critics say that this is violating different codes, different customs, but Trump says that he would be stupid not to take this free gift. Watch.
I would never be one to turn down that kind of an offer. I mean, I could be a stupid person and say, no, we don't want a free, very expensive airplane. But I thought it was a great gesture.
And also, the president emphasizes that it's not a personal gift to him, but rather it's going to be used by the Department of Defense, save them money, and of course, give them more time to actually build a new Air Force One with Boeing. And ultimately, after Trump's current term, that plane will be used, he says, by the Presidential Library, the Trump Presidential Library Foundation afterwards.
Yeah, President Trump has said he is not happy with the working speed that Boeing's going at to build this new Air Force One jet. Iris, thank you. You got to come back to New York more often.
Well, that's my hope.
All right, thank you.
Of course.
And we're going to move on now. Israeli-American hostage Eidan Alexander is now free after being held in the Gaza Strip for more than 19 months. Hamas terrorists said they have released him. The group said it's ready for negotiations to reach a ceasefire agreement. Now, Alexander is the last known living American hostage held in Gaza. The Israeli military confirmed that he had been turned over to the Red Cross and was being brought to Israeli forces. The president released a statement Sunday that thanked mediators from Qatar and Egypt for their help in securing Alexander's release. Hamas's leader in Gaza, Khalil al-Hayya, said the U.S. government had been in contact for the past several days. In a statement, he said Hamas is ready to start negotiations toward an enduring ceasefire that would also end the war. U.S. Special Envoy Adam Bowler said the United States has asked Hamas to release the bodies of 4 other American hostages. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Monday that Israel has not agreed to a ceasefire or prisoner release, only to a safe corridor that allows for Alexander's release. The release could open the door to freeing the remaining 59 hostages still in Gaza. Israeli officials believe over half of those are dead. Alexander's parents traveled to Israel ahead of his anticipated release. All right, and now let's keep our eye on that U.S.-China trade talk and the latest details that have come out of that deal. Let's bring on Daniel Lacalle, chief economist with Tressis and author of Freedom or Equality. Daniel, happy Monday. Great to have you on. Let's first talk about the stock market here, right? It soared this morning. Just some numbers for you. The Dow up 2.5%, S&P 500 up 2.85%. The U.S. dollar also up 1.2%.
Yes, absolutely. Those numbers show that the market was way too pessimistic about the possibility of a trade deal, and that it understands that the Trump administration is going to reach similar deals very, very quickly, also with Japan and with the European Union, because the UK deal and the China deal both leave a very clear path of negotiations that is likely to end up in positive results for both economies, both the United States and the Chinese one. So the element here that's most important is that markets were almost discounting a recessionary environment with high inflation. And now the market is coming back to understanding that that is not the case.
Okay, so Daniel, in this current deal that we've got, these tariffs, they're being paused for 90 days. But of course, not all of the tariffs are being removed, right? We see this 30% on Chinese goods and then a 10% on American goods going into China. So Daniel, in the event that a further, more detailed deal is reached, do you think these tariffs could go down even more?
Oh, absolutely. These tariffs can go down more, but it's very important that we get a clear picture of the negotiations on the non-tariff barriers. I'm not particularly worried about the tariff side. I'm exceedingly worried about the non-tariff barriers, which are very elevated in China. As you know, the technology companies are banned. Many of the automotive companies are banned. There is also a significant challenge of intellectual property and very significant challenges also of investor and legal security. All those elements need to be addressed with the negotiation also of these tariffs, which I believe will come down quite significantly once agriculture, automotive, and farming are addressed by both sides, both negotiation teams.
Well, to that point, Daniel, Treasury Secretary Besson is saying, this is a quote, "What we do want is a decoupling for strategic necessities." And of course, we've heard this a lot, especially in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic and all that personal protective equipment that was literally coming to the U.S. from China. So how do you think that's going to manifest in these upcoming talks?
Well, I think that the objective of the Trump administration is basically to reshore the strategic sector manufacturing. And I think that that is very, very likely because it's not a question of all of the challenges that may come from competitiveness or pricing, but it's because of the barriers imposed in one side, particularly in China. Therefore, I think that what we can see in the next months is a gradual shift in which we can get more investment into the United States, those strategic sectors, particularly in technology, chips, etc., coming back to the United States, or at least to countries close to the United States, and a rebalancing of trade, in which the trade deficit with China is reduced significantly in chemicals, in agriculture, in automotive, in tech, and also definitely in the farming sector.
Right, and the president even said this morning that ultimately he wants China to open up, right? So then whether it's the comments the president's been making about China or those CIA recruitment videos that we saw targeting Chinese officials, or even the current agreement to pause these tariffs for 90 days, it really seems like the president is saying here, you know, hey, if you play by the rules, we'll treat you fairly and everyone's going to benefit. But if you don't play by the rules, we're not going to let you play at all.
That is the case. That is exactly the summary of what the Trump administration is looking for. The Chinese economy has been closing, not opening, in the past 10 years in particular. The elements of non-tariff barriers are so elevated that they are similar to those of a third world nation. And obviously China is not a third world nation. And the tariff barriers are also very elevated. There's a lot of things that need to change in terms of intellectual property, as I said before, in terms of access to technology and access to the legal and investor security that we're used all over the world. Things as simple as lifting capital controls, as lifting the requirements to fill all the legal obligations within mainland China, instead of, for example, in international areas that everybody feels comfortable with. All those elements are very, very significant, and they will be addressed in future negotiations.
Right, and President Trump is also saying that he might be speaking with the Chinese regime leader at the end of this week. Here's a quote actually from the fact sheet from the White House that was published this morning. The United States and China will take aggressive actions to stem the flow of fentanyl and other precursors from China to illicit drug producers in North America. My final question to you here, Daniel, what would Trump do if China ends up not being able to keep its promise, whether it be to open its market or control fentanyl?
Let me start by saying that I find it very, very difficult that China does not comply with it, because we've already seen exports to the United States falling dramatically by more than 25%. And the Chinese economy is not in a situation in which it can afford to say to the United States, we don't want to trade with you. But what would happen? There would be obviously measures that would immediately impose higher tariffs as those compliance levels fall, i.e., if there is obviously going to be an audit of these negotiations, there is going to be an audit of the compliance, and there will be punitive measures. There will be punitive measures in which the Trump administration can use both legal and tariff weapons in order to bring back China to opening the economy. But I think that ultimately China doesn't have another option. There was a view globally that China would sell the things that they sell to the United States elsewhere. We know now, with all the information that we've had from these months, that that is not the case.
Yeah, and the president keeps saying if you just open up your market, it's going to be better for everyone. Daniel Lakai, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And coming up, a Northern California sheriff reveals how a theft of copper wires shut down his county's 911 system, which prompted his decision to work with ICE despite California's sanctuary state law. We'll be right back.
Imagine a coffee that cares for your health. Expertly fermented with a 50-enzyme complex to enhance flavor and remove bitterness. Small batch roasted to a decadent medium dark, resulting in a brew that is gentle on digestion, low acid, and up to 90% less caffeine than regular coffee. Try America's first enzyme fermented coffee today.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
Everybody in my house knows how to ride a bike except me. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike and you didn't? I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Welcome back. Republicans in Congress are expected to advance elements of a sweeping budget package this week. Many details are still being negotiated. Now, it would build on tax cuts passed during President Trump's first term that are due to expire this year. Other spending cuts would total $912 billion over the coming decade. Up to this point, the proposal does not include President Trump's suggestion to raise the tax rate on the wealthiest Americans. It also does not include Trump's promises to discontinue taxes on tips, overtime pay, and Social Security retirement benefits. House Speaker Mike Johnson said he wants the House to pass the bill before Memorial Day. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has urged lawmakers to raise the government's debt ceiling by mid-July in order to avoid a default. The Trump administration has fired the nation's top copyright official, Shira Perlmutter. The move comes days after laying off the head of the Library of Congress, which oversees the Copyright Office. The office said in a statement yesterday that Perlmutter received an email from the White House. It said her position was terminated effective immediately. Perlmutter was previously a policy director at the Patent and Trademark Office and worked on copyright and other areas of intellectual property. On Thursday, the Trump administration fired Librarian of Congress Carla Hayden. Hayden named Perlmutter to lead the Copyright Office in October of 2020. This week, the Supreme Court will hear a case related to President Trump's plan to end birthright citizenship. Birthright citizenship gives legal citizenship to all children born in the U.S., regardless of the citizenship of their parents. The Supreme Court previously deferred President Trump's request that would have allowed him to enforce the plan. The justices are now set to hear arguments on his request to restrict lower court rulings, which could impact the citizenship case. At issue here is the method of nationwide injunction that lower court judges have employed to stall Trump's plan to end birthright citizenship. Thursday's hearing will offer the first Supreme Court oral arguments over any second-term Trump initiative since the president's inauguration. Northern California Sheriff Gary Redmond joins Bay Area innovators to discuss his stance on cooperating with ICE to protect communities from crime. From tackling illegal activities like copper wire theft that disrupted 911 systems to his proactive approach to law enforcement, Redmond shares his passion and advice for youth. Take a listen.
You've been making headlines with your statements or your thoughts about how cooperating with ICE would help your community and how that's the right thing to do. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so when SB 54 came out in 2017, it really kind of, wouldn't allow us to identify any illegals within our jail. And so I've looked at it and I followed it. We haven't made any contacts with ICE. We haven't asked those questions. Are you here illegally? Say we have somebody that is here illegally, commits a heinous crime, a violent felony, and they're somehow going to get released back into my community. That's where I've made that decision, and I've come out openly and said, this is wrong. We've had too many incidences over the years, too many people either murdered or raped because of an illegal who was released back in the community and now goes out and commits this act. If they, get arrested for, let's say, rape, and they're not wanted by Homeland Security, they're allowed to bail. People are allowed to bail. That is an actual right. So if you're part of our cartel and they've got money and they're going to come bring money to bail you out and you haven't gone to court, well, SB 54 says I can't do anything, and that's where I'm coming in saying absolutely I will contact ICE if I believe this person is here illegally, and then ICE can make that determination on what they're going to do.
Is there any examples you can talk about, something that happened along these lines?
We had somebody last year. It was actually a group out of Stockton, and they are here illegally. They admitted, well, they were going around stealing throughout San Joaquin in my county copper wire and cutting down AT&T lines. Well, what happened is they took my entire 911 system, all of my communications for 24 hours down. And we had 2 incidents where this occurred. So it was a huge impact on public safety. I had to put dispatchers over to another county. We had to transfer calls, but we were dropping 911 calls. But that's that public safety risk that doesn't fall within SB 54 that had such a huge impact. He was convicted of crimes. They don't fall within the SB 54. So he's still in my facility. And at some point, he is going to get released. And when he does, I'm going to let ICE know this is when he's getting released.
Tell us more about your passion. What drives your passion of law enforcement?
I hear like young law enforcement, or when they're interviewing, they're like, I want to help people. I want to help people. I get that, but you really don't know what you're talking about until you get into this career. Because the way we help people is we go out and we take bad people off the streets. We arrest bad people. So in my shift, there could be nothing going on, but I'm out there kicking over rocks. I'm checking every place that I can possibly think of to where I know people are going to hang out, do narcotics or steal stuff. And I'm proactively making car stops. And it doesn't mean you're writing tickets all day, because even when I make a lot of car stops, which I still do, I rarely write a ticket. It's usually education at that point. Not everybody is a bad person. People just make some very poor choices. And sometimes it's just getting them to recognize this was a very, very poor choice. There are consequences.
Please tell us any advice you have for young kids these days.
What I've always told them, and I told my daughters the same thing, you never know where you're going to end up. When I was 18, I didn't know I was going to be here. So it's making those choices in life with that in the back of your mind, that some of those choices could close a lot of doors. Every choice has a consequence. There are consequences, believe it or not, still today. Please be mindful of that, because you never know where you're going to end up, and you want as many doors open in life as possible. And this may be a path that you're never going to take. But in law enforcement, we're extremely selective. We're picky for a reason. We have to be. None of us want bad apples. None of us want bad actors. And as sheriff, I have fired 3 people. We're talking tenured over, 2 of them had over 20 years. Unfortunately, some of those bad actors do get through. And so that's my message to young people, is think about that. Every action does have a consequence.
And if you're interested in that story, you can watch the full epoch.com on epochtv.com. Moving on now, the Department of Education and the Department of Justice recently announced the launch of a Title IX Special Investigations Team known as SIT. It aims to protect students and especially female athletes from what officials call the pernicious effects of gender ideology in schools. NTD's Daniel Monahan spoke with the founder of a parents group about why it believes the move is so important.
In a joint statement, the department said the new team will streamline investigations and allow for rapid, consistent enforcement of civil rights laws protecting women and girls. Attorney General Pam Bondi emphasized.
This is about sports. This is also about these young women's personal safety. I've met many of these women throughout the past weeks and months, and what they have been through is horrific.
Education Secretary Linda McMahon says there's a new sheriff in town.
We take the violations of women's civil rights very seriously.
Sherry Few, founder of United States Parents Involved in Education, or USPI, says the announcement marks a major victory for parents and students. Few says the Biden administration's Title IX changes were a dangerous distortion of the law.
The Title IX law has been in place for more than 50 years. It was instituted in an effort to ensure that women had a level playing field when it came to sports and had the same opportunities as men do.
Few says left-leaning states like Washington and California are ignoring federal protections for female students, creating an urgent need for this new task force.
I've spoken with several school board members and a gentleman who runs an organization called the Washington Parents Network, and they are working together, several of these school boards and these parents, and have filed complaints with Title IX. But these complaints are being backlogged.
She warns that many schools are hiding gender transitions from parents and simply rebranding controversial policies like DEI.
They're calling it a different name. In many states, it's family and community engagement, which is such a stretch from DEI. But that's what they do. They rebrand things, but under a different name, and thereby they're effective in not complying with these orders.
Few urges parents to stay vigilant and in some cases consider pulling their children out of public schools altogether.
The best way to protect your children is to get them out of government schools. We recommend homeschooling. We think it's the best option for children.
Few also hosts a new podcast exposing what she calls the indoctrination happening in classrooms, covering issues from what she calls the rewriting of American history to the sexualization of young children. For more on Sherry Few's work and updates on the Title IX Special Investigations Team, visit uspie.org. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
More airport trouble in New Jersey. Newark International Airport experienced another air traffic equipment outage yesterday. The problems caused the FAA to issue a temporary ground stop for all flights bound for the airport. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says he plans to reduce the number of flights in and out of the airport for the next several weeks as it struggles with radar outages and other issues. This speaking on NBC's Meet the Press.
This is a system that's 25 at best, sometimes 50 years old. The Congress and the country haven't paid attention to it, right? They expect it to work. And so now I think the lights are blinking, the sirens are turning, and they're saying, listen, we have to fix this because what you see in Newark is going to happen in other places across the country. It has to be fixed. And so what we're having is some telecom issues, but we're also having some glitches in our software. As the information comes in, it's overloading some of our lines and the system goes down.
Duffy said he will meet this week with all major carriers flying through Newark. He said the number of flight cutbacks would fluctuate by time of day. Most cuts will target afternoon hours when international arrivals make the airport busier. Separately, hundreds of flights were delayed yesterday at Atlanta International Airport because of a runway equipment issue. The Trump administration recently proposed a multi-billion-dollar overhaul of the air traffic control system. It would include 6 new air traffic control centers and technology and communications upgrades at all air traffic facilities. When we come back, talks of peace may be in the air, but so are Russian drones. Ukraine is pointing the finger over an alleged nighttime attack. Stay tuned.
If joint pain from aging is slowing you down, Omega XL can help you get back in the saddle, just like it did for John Walsh.
Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. Got to be really fit to ride these horses. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL, and look what it's done. I feel better than I've felt in the last 30 years.
I'm Reve Walsh. I'm John Walsh's wife. I ride fox hunters, and sometimes I'm in the saddle for 3-5 hours at a time. A lot of work out here.
I wouldn't have been able to do this. Muck a stall, throw hay, do all the things that needs to be done on a ranch a couple years ago. But Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great.
Once you try it, you don't want to be without it. It makes a huge difference.
It does. Take it every single day, and you know, there's a benefit. It's made you a lot nicer to me.
If you've been living with pain, it's time to get this special offer, the Omega XL, the joint health supplement that millions have trusted for more than 20 years. Omega XL, it's sourced from the green-lipped mussel, exclusively found in the pristine waters of New Zealand, some of the cleanest waters on Earth. Omega XL, it's natural, drug-free, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research that show it really works. Try Omega XL today. Pick up your phone and call the number at the bottom of your screen right now for a special offer. Buy one, get two free. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3, a value of more than $100. But call today and you pay only $39.95. That's a savings of more than 60%. Plus, it's backed by our 60-day money-back guarantee.
Try it. You got nothing to lose.
Call or go online right now to get this special offer. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3 for only $39.95. Call now.
In 4 days. There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children. She didn't know what to do.
Did you have a good day at school?
She gave them some broth without any bread.
There you go.
And kissed them all soundly.
Night night. Good night.
And put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
Thanks for staying with us. Pope Leo has called for the release of imprisoned reporters today in his first address to the media. The pontiff expressed support for the role of the press during those remarks.
Dobbiamo dire no alla guerra delle parole.
We must say no to the war of words and images. We must reject the paradigm of war. Let me therefore reiterate today the Church's solidarity with journalists who are imprisoned for seeking and reporting the truth, while also asking for their release.
The pontiff's remarks also came after he spoke with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. Zelensky said on Telegram that his first conversation with the new pontiff was, quote, very warm and truly substantive. Zelensky added that he had invited the Pope to visit Ukraine. Zelensky said they discussed Ukrainian children abducted by Russia and a proposal from allies for a 30-day ceasefire. Moscow has yet to accept any deal. Staying with Russia and Ukraine, the Ukrainian Air Force said today that Russia launched more than 100 Shahed and decoy drones at Ukraine in nighttime attacks. This after the Kremlin rejected an unconditional 30-day ceasefire. Meanwhile, there was no response from the Kremlin to Ukrainian President Zelensky's proposal to meet face-to-face with Russian President Putin. The meeting would take place at the peace talks in Turkey this week. Putin and Zelensky have only met once, and that was in 2019. President Trump says deep hatred between the sides has made it difficult to push peace efforts forward. Ukraine had demanded Russia accept a ceasefire starting today before holding any peace talks. Moscow effectively rejected that proposal and instead called for direct negotiations in Istanbul. Poland is closing the Russian consulate in Krakow The move comes after Polish authorities said Russia was responsible for a fire that destroyed a shopping center in Warsaw last year. The shopping center housed some 1,400 shops and service points. Many of the vendors in the budget marketplace were from Vietnam. No one was hurt in the fire. The Polish foreign minister announced the closure this morning, exactly 1 year after the fire. Russia's foreign ministry said Monday that there would be an adequate response to the consulate's closure. Poland last year already ordered the closure of the Russian consulate in the city of Poznan. Only one Russian consulate is left now. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said late yesterday that officials now know for certain that the massive fire was the result of arson commissioned by Russian services. Tusk added that some suspects are already in custody. Over to Taiwan now. It test-fired a new U.S.-supplied rocket system for the first time today. This is the same system that has been widely used by Ukraine against Russia. It could be deployed to hit targets in mainland China if there is a war. Taiwan bought 29 high-mobility artillery rocket systems known as HIMARS. The first batch of 11 were received last year, and the rest are set to arrive next year. A Taiwanese military officer told reporters that U.S. personnel from the manufacturer were on site to address any issues. The test came a day after Taiwan said it detected another Chinese military patrol near the island involving warplanes and warships. With a range of over 180 miles, HIMARS could hit coastal targets in China's southern province of Fujian in the event of a conflict. Ukraine has used HIMARS multiple times during its war with Russia, and back in March, Australia said it got the first 2 of 42 HIMARS launchers. India and Pakistan said today there was no firing reported overnight along the heavily militarized region between their countries. That is the first time in recent days that two nations were not shooting at each other. The two countries reached an understanding to stop all military actions on Saturday in a U.S.-brokered ceasefire. India said today that it has reopened 32 airports that were shut during clashes with its neighbor, Pakistan. Pakistan's airport authority fully reopened its airspace on Saturday. India and Pakistan have delayed talks between their militaries to discuss the next steps after a ceasefire. Talks are now scheduled to take place this evening. Hostilities between the countries followed a deadly attack on tourists in Kashmir. India accused Pakistan of backing the terrorists who carried out the massacre, a charge that Islamabad denies. Britain's Prime Minister lays out new migration controls, saying tremendous damage has been done to British society by mass immigration. The plans here will make it harder for immigrants to get citizenship, and it also aims to lower the number of people going into the country and taking low-paid jobs. Here's NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer promises to cut down net migration to the United Kingdom. Outlining a new government white paper, he said high immigration figures have caused incalculable damage to British society.
We risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together.
Starmer said he wants net migration down significantly by the next general election.
When people come to our country, they should also commit to integration, to learning our language. And our system should actively distinguish between those that do and those that don't.
The white paper includes measures such as a 10-year rather than a 5-year wait for migrants to apply for citizenship, a higher required standard of English across all immigration routes, and stricter tests for colleges and universities offering places to foreign students. British Home Office estimates indicate changes from the plan could reduce the number of people coming to the UK by up to 100,000 per year. The plans also promise to lower the number of visas for low-skilled jobs and end overseas recruitment for care homes, essential but usually low-paid work. But the Royal College of Nursing chief Nicola Ranger criticised the plans.
The UK is so reliant on overseas workers, especially in social care, and the government has no plan to grow a domestic workforce. This is all about politics, pandering and scapegoating.
She instead said immigrant workers should be allowed to get publicly funded benefits and visa applications should be much cheaper. However, last month, Health Secretary Wes Streeting said the UK must stop plundering foreign countries for doctors. That includes countries like Ghana, Zimbabwe and Nigeria. Streeting promised to do more to train homegrown British medical talent. The government's promise to take back control of the borders comes as the Labour Party battles a surge in support for Reform UK. which recently won a by-election and council seats across England, with policies including a freeze on immigration. Reform Deputy Leader Richard Tice said Starmer's plans do not set a figure for the maximum number of legal immigrants.
We at Reform UK are crystal clear. We want net zero immigration. And that's what the British people want, and that's why we did so well, getting, I think, 2.5 times as many votes as the Labour Party at the recent elections.
Net migration is how many people enter the country minus the number who leave. It stood at 728,000 in the year to mid-2024, down from the peak of 906,000 during the previous year, though still far higher than the 184,000 who arrived in the same period during 2019, when Britain was still in the European Union. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
Contenders for South Korea's presidency kicked off their campaigns today. This is a race to determine the successor to former leader Yoon Suk-yeol, who was ousted after briefly declaring martial law. Top of the agenda for any candidate is uniting a fractured country in the wake of Yoon's removal and trying to grow the economy under new U.S. trade policies.
The frontrunner is Lee Jae-myung of the Liberal Democratic Party. Lee lost to Yoon in the last election, but is now gaining strong support.
Inequality, polarization, and insurrection have driven our society into extreme division and conflict, to the point where a presidential candidate should wear a bulletproof vest at election campaigns.
Lee was wearing such a vest on Monday over threats to his safety. He also survived a knife attack last year and has ridden a wave of popular appeal after that incident, as well as standing up to martial law and contesting charges that threatened to disqualify him. Those trials on charges of bribery and others linked to a property scandal have been postponed until after the polls. His party's policy pledges include mending fractured ties with North Korea and forging stronger ties with Europe. Lee's rival is Kim Moon-soo of the right-wing People Power Party. He began his campaign at a Seoul market, eating Korean sausage soup with merchants there and promising to revive small businesses.
Standing here at a public wholesale market, I truly feel I need to become the president of the markets, a president for people's livelihoods, a president for the economy. I think I should become a president who brings prosperity to South Korea.
Yoon backed Kim on Sunday to fight what he called the giant opposition party, but that's drawn criticism from PPP members who want Yoon kicked out of their party. If elected, Kim has proposed an immediate summit meeting with Trump to negotiate tariffs. Kim has also said he'd explore the possibility of South Korea developing nuclear arms by securing the right to reprocess nuclear fuel, a big step toward building atomic weapons.
Coming up next, the Taste of Paris Fair returns to the French capital over the weekend, bringing together chefs and the public in a shared love for fine dining. We'll have that story after this break.
What has lasted 5,000 years was once almost lost. Now, the world awaits the divine culture's return.
Hey, have you heard what's happening at Mathis Home? The Monumental Savings event is happening right now. Save big on our newest arrivals. We have hundreds of sofas with styles you love at unbeatable prices. Like this one. At just $5.99, you can enjoy this contemporary sofa by Ashley, complete with 5 accent pillows. Just one of over 100 great sofas in stock and ready for you to enjoy tonight with fast and free delivery. So don't miss out on the Monumental Savings event happening at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Stay tuned to get a free month of home warranty protection. Tired of searching for contractors when your home appliances and systems break down, only to leave you stuck with a huge repair bill and shoddy repairs? Plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and appliance breakdowns could cost thousands.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they could do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way.
I would recommend anyone who is listening to this to call Choice Home Warranty. It eliminates the anxiety, frustration, and it saves you money.
Don't let an appliance or home system break the bank, leaving you stressed. Call Choice Home Warranty before that happens and get your first month free. Plus, call in the next 5 minutes and we'll give you free limited roof leak coverage. That's a $70 value, free. Just call now.
No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. I trust Choice Home Warranty with my home, and you should too.
Year after year, Choice Home Warranty is recognized as the nation's top home warranty and has thousands of 5-star reviews from real homeowners. Experience real budget protection and call Choice Home Warranty now.
Stop throwing money down the toilet chasing contractors. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Don't wait another minute. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. That's over $100 in savings. This offer won't last long. Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-216-9114, 800-216-9114.
Thanks for staying with us. Dozens of chefs gathered in Paris for a culinary fair over the weekend. They shared with the public their signature dishes and also some recipes to try at home. NTD's international correspondent David Vives reports from Paris.
Each year, Taste of Paris brings together the finest chefs of the capital at the fair. The public is invited to meet them, taste their dishes, and discover what is called the chef's gastronomy identity.
Over 40 exhibitors, including restaurant owners, shared recipes at the Grand Palais in Paris.
For me, it's really about meeting our customers, our public, making fine dining accessible for all. All this in a very happy atmosphere, with lots of sharing and conviviality. It's a real treat.
Chef Stéphanie Lequelec, a fan of Mediterranean red mullet, created her signature dish using orange blossom juice and fennel velouté.
Rouget is a dish I've worked on for over 15 years, always evolving. Red mullet is a very special fish that's quite distinctive, that has a lot of taste, a lot of character.
Chef Michael Méziane served miso-marinated salmon with black radish and Swedish caviar.
The R&D with this one involved about 20 trials. We modified the miso paste consistency, we changed the chilling time, how to marinate it well with the alcohol. Now it's something we cook very often or during events because so many people love it.
Pastry chef Geoffrey Cagne created his own take on an orange croissant and a sweet pie inspired by Italian pizza.
We have something that looks like a margarita but is actually a dessert. It's made with brioche, pistachios, pistachio praline, strawberry puree, basil confit, tiny basil sprouts, and grated white chocolate.
The fair also featured cooking lessons for visitors interested in trying new recipes at home. For some participants, the Chinese dumpling recipe proved challenging, with over 15 ingredients.
It goes very fast, and it's very difficult to keep up with everything and to coordinate with my daughters. If we manage, we'll try again at home.
This marks the first time the fair has returned to the Grand Palais since its restoration. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Practitioners of the spiritual practice Falun Dafa paraded through London over the weekend to celebrate World Falun Dafa Day. Here's NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson, who was there and sent us this report.
A parade in London celebrating World Falun Dafa Day. Now, Falun Dafa is a spiritual practice guided by the principles of truthfulness, compassion and tolerance, and practiced freely by millions of people across the entire world. But while today is a day of celebration, the parade also highlights a persecution ongoing in China. Falun Dafa, which is also known as Falun Gong, is a comprehensive mind-body practice for moral improvement. It was first publicly taught in China on May 13, 1992, and soon became very popular, with estimates of 70 to 100 million people practicing it. This year's World Falun Dafa Day celebrates the 33rd anniversary of its public introduction, and is a show of gratitude for the positive changes practitioners have experienced.
I started practicing Falun Dafa by doing the exercises and was really hooked on those because it released tension in my shoulders and back that I'd had for years. It just relaxes my whole body and mind, and that's the biggest thing. I'm much, much healthier than I was in my 50s.
Alongside the meditation and exercises, Valandafa also teaches practitioners to let go of attachments such as anger and jealousy, and to develop a deeper sense of benevolence.
It made me calm, made me more rational, made me more reasonable, made me consider other people much more, so that when you know, in particular when things happen in life, instead of reacting right away, that I take a moment to reflect.
But while events like this take place freely and openly in nations across the world, it's a very different story in China. In 1999, the Chinese Communist Party launched a brutal persecution against Valandafa, seeking to eradicate it. Practitioners in China have been subjected to terrible abuses, from financial persecution to detention, torture and murder, simply for their faith. Retired Hong Kong academic Stephen Sang said he came to show his personal support.
And I urge a lot of people, if you think the persecution of Falun Gong is just a persecution of a group of people because of their religion, they don't see the full picture. The full picture is this evil regime will one day, without we knowing it, come to our doorsteps.
In 2019, the Independent China Tribunal concluded the Chinese regime has been conducting forced organ harvesting on a significant scale, with Falun Gong practitioners used as the primary source of organs in a state-sanctioned transplant trade. Benedict Rogers, Senior Director of Fortify Rights, urges the British government to take heed of the tribunal's findings.
Some of the things that they could do would be to sanction those who are in the Chinese government who are responsible for the persecution of Falun Gong and other groups, those who are responsible for forced organ harvesting. I think we should have a ban on organ tourism of British citizens going to China for organ transplants.
He says he stands in solidarity with Valandafa and wishes them a blessed World Valandafa Day.
And it's been wonderful to see Valandafa so visibly represented here in the centre of London, in Trafalgar Square, and I hope that one day in Tiananmen Square in Beijing the same will be possible.
A wish shared by everyone here. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
A truly inspirational story. All right, up next, Governor Gavin Newsom introduces a new model ordinance today to help California cities remove homeless encampments, offering a clear path to tackle the crisis statewide. We'll be right back in the next hour. Don't go anywhere.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different from when I was 3 or 4 years old. I did tough things. I thought everybody needed to do tough things, and if you didn't, I didn't have time for it. I had a very successful career at a very young age, and life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally on the inside. And then I got hurt. I wanted to be better as a person, and I really dug into mental health. I start my day with 20-minute workouts. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Horses are so therapeutic. They know what you're feeling. When you're nervous, they're nervous. You won't say it back, but we're pals. I take a lot of responsibility in taking care of my kids, my family, and being there for them. You're gonna have tough days. Everybody does. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
Hey, boss. Okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
You sure?
I said I'm fine.
Since I was little, it was only like me and my parents. You think you created family out of characters? Yeah, of course. I'm gonna take that into a song.
Jason.
Hey, Bob.
You can talk to me.
It's been really, really hard for me.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver.
and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. My grandpa Lou is the reason why my dad and I started racing, and I'm really proud to follow in his tracks. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. I've learned a lot on this journey with my grandpa Lou, and the memories of my grandpa will always be with me. And in our family, we're used to getting involved, and I encourage you to do the same, especially when it comes to caring for your loved ones. When I think about Alzheimer's and the impact it had on my family, I recognize that losing a race isn't such a bad day after all. It's important to notice if older family members are acting